But what is it that, worries you if you're a Real Madrid fan watching this team in this game? What worries you the most facing them?
So I would say that my main concern is still mostly Isak, precisely because yes, he could just wake up against us. That could happen. And yes, I verified that yes, Isak was injured for around a month. Yeah, at the beginning of the season. I do feel that his ball carrying ability has decreased a bit this season, and it might be physical, like something like related to his physique. But whatever the case, Isak, even when he doesn't score, he still has an impact on how La Real attacks, and I think that's one of the things that concerned me the most. Then the other player that concerns me right now is Januzaj. So Januzaj is definitely another. Now that's definitely an example of an inconsistent player. He can have some really good. He can have some days where he just has no impact. He has no impact on the games. Then there are other days where he really, really has. He wakes up and he has a tremendous impact over everything, because Januzaj is a player who can be very creative, but he also moves a lot. He's very dynamic, and he can help La Real move the ball from deep and also get into the box and create chances and do shots himself. I would say that right now La Real's most informed player is Januzaj. And something that I found really curious is that over time, so Alguacil started playing him more as a right winger, like in previous seasons. And each time we're seeing Alguacil give Januzaj more central roles.
Mm-hmm.
And for example, last week against Espanyol, because Silva is injured and he will likely not play against Real too, he's giving Januzaj more like attacking midfielder responsibility. So he was playing more centrally, and I think having all that kind of freedom, having the freedom of a 10, actually works really nicely for Januzaj. And I would say he was one of the. So La Real lost the game against Espanyol last time, but I would say he was one of the better news for them. Then with Oyarzabal, it's always a bit complicated. I have to admit I'm not a big fan of Oyarzabal, and especially I don't think he's a player who has a major impact in big games and against big opponents. So I have to say, and he is just recovering, like he's coming back from an injury. He's been a couple weeks out of his injury, so I would say he's still not yet there. He's still not yet at his peak. So I think the guys I'm more worried about are Januzaj and Isak. And we have to take in mind that, yes, La Real might play this game without Elustondo, who is suspended, and there are doubts for Mikel Merino and David Silva. All these three are major absences.
Which I think makes this tricky to kind of predict which way this goes. And I mean, I think Real Madrid are the favorite regardless, but I will say, like, it changes kind of how Real Sociedad will approach this game depending on if those players can go. Because if Merino, David Silva can't go, it will change things completely for them. And even if they can go, will they be at 100%? That's the other thing. I do think it's interesting that you noted Januzaj's central role, because that's something that I noted as well. And there's games when you watch him where he's almost just kind of behind Isak, floating around and coming over to the left to combine with Barrenechea, or even like that benefits Gorosabal in the sense where he can just, receive a switch. He can kind of have the flank to his own, or sometimes combine with Januzaj as well, where they're combining on the right side, which obviously a key matchup in that sense automatically arises with Ferland Mendy on that side. And how much will Gorosabal push forward with Vinicius there? It's not every day where you face a winger like Vinicius if you're Real Sociedad. So it'd be interesting to see how that kind of matchup unfolds. And, if Real Sociedad don't play with Silva and Merino, will they be a little bit more conservative? Will they try to control the ball less? Will they play a little bit deeper? What do you think? How much will the dynamic change if they don't play Silva and Merino?
I think they will be a worse team, but I don't think the dynamic will change that much, which is kind of how Alguacil ball works. Like Alguacil he believes in his philosophy. He believes in dominating, pressing, and possession. This is a guy who, for example, went against Manchester United in the Europa League, a team that was clearly a hard counter to their style, to their playing style, and he still went there and did the same thing, and that's why they got 4 goals against. So I think it won't change the approach too much. It's not going to be exactly the same, of course, but I would expect that if Merino doesn't play, then the double pivot will be Subimendi and Guevara, both of them very competent ball progressors. If Silva doesn't play, then Januzaj will probably play central. And again, he's in good form. He's creative. The main things that all of these that especially the absences of Elustondo and Merino can have is on defense. And I think this was very noticeable in their game against Espanyol. They were defending worse as a unit. They were defending worse in the box. They're gonna suffer. They're definitely going to suffer there more. Merino is really important for their pressing system. He's out of the midfielders, he's the most physical one, and not having him will definitely make it a bit easier for Real to crack their defense.
I kind of brought up a key matchup earlier. Do you also feel that that's a key matchup? If yes, you can elaborate on why that is, maybe more than I did, and also, is there anywhere else on the field that's catching your eye from a matchup perspective?
So I think the matchup where there's the most potential to do damage is Vinicius going in the channel between Gorosabel and Zubeldia. So I'm gonna use this because it's an example. It's something that's very similar to what happened. I would say that Real Madrid for this one should try to kind of do what Manchester United did earlier in the year, which is keep a deeper block and then just go on the counter and take advantage of Vinicius running into that channel. Because what happens usually? Gorosabel, out of the 2 fullbacks, tends to be the more aggressive one. So it's easier to get Vinicius behind his back. And then you would have La Real likes to keep their high line. And then you would have Vinicius running in a high line against Zubeldia, who is not really, he's used as a backup center back, but he's definitely not at the same level as Lenormand or Elustondo. This actually, a big reason why La Real suffered so much against Manchester United was because exactly the same thing happened. Elustondo was absent, Zubeldia played instead, and then you had Marcus Rashford running on the counter in a high line against Zubeldia. And I think I think Real Madrid can reproduce a similar thing this time around. I think that matchup in particular of like Vinicius against Zubeldia, that's a matchup where a lot of damage can happen. So even better than the Gorosabel versus Vinicius matchup, we want Vinicius to match up against Zubeldia on the counter. I think that's almost an ideal scenario to generate goals against them.